Okay, so in this aerial video that the NTSB released to us just a few hours ago, this shows what I wish I would have had in yesterday's video to show you the exact path that the plane took as it was coming down. So you can get a great vantage point view here of the runway and everything leading from the point of takeoff all the way down to where the plane crashed and came to a stop. This sheds better light on the whole area there for us and exactly where the plane went and what direction it crashed in. So in the NTSB video, they were showing how they were looking at an overview satellite map of the airport, and he's sort of pointing, there's the UPS warehouse that it hit, and there's where all of the debris ended up finally, there where you saw all of those explosions. So now they're getting ready with some drones, and they're going to fly them up and get some video, and I wish they had gotten 4K video for us. I'm pretty sure they shot it in 4K, but they only uploaded it in high def, standard 1080, but gives you this is a very good crystal clear overview of exactly what happened. And there's the runway in the upper right corner coming into view there, and we're going to stop and look at that in a second here, but I just wanted to let it show you all of the destructive path that this entire plane took as it was skidding across all of these junkyards and recycle yards, and how the flames just spread from one parked vehicle to the next one. So here I made this slide for you, and it basically shows that by the time they hit V1 speed, that's the decision. You have to decide that you're going to rotate up the nose, and you have to take off no matter what. So by that speed, you don't really have the time to come back to a stop again, because you'll crash at the end of the one-way and burn anyway. So standard protocol is always that once you get to this rotation speed and that nose lifts up, you're taking off no matter what, even if your engine is on fire, because it's a lot easier to deal with an engine fire here up in the air and just turn around and come back than it is to all of a sudden be rushed and make a stupid mistake and crash through the end of the runway. So it's a lot safer normally if your engines stay on. Now, if you lose an engine right now while you're rotating upward, you're in big trouble. And that's apparently what happened here to these guys. And so the plane, it looks to me like it never even got really much more than what you see in this diagram off of the runway. Okay, so as we look at their photo, so this is the runway right here, 17R, where it took off, and it barely cleared the fence line right here and then veered to the left. And then if you look, you can barely see the gouge on the top of the UPS warehouse. I'll show you again from the other night in a minute, a little bit overview what it looked like from up above. So here's an aerial shot taken the other night showing some of the vehicles on the runway from the NTSB, but you can clearly see the gouge on the roof because we have a higher elevation viewpoint here. So you can tell that the plane had taken off, veered off to the left there, and then the landing gear had scraped out a portion of the roof. Like I mentioned in yesterday's video, I think the landing gear scraped the top of the roof of this warehouse, and then it was beginning to lose lift, and then this is now where you saw in my video last night, I showed you that dash cam from the guy's pickup truck that I think he was sitting right around here or so on Grady Lane on this pickup truck. And that's when the plane came right across the street here. I believe this is the first impact zone right here where the petroleum recycling plant was with all of those tall vertical tanks and the horizontal tanks. That's where I think it started. And then it just skidded hundreds of yards here across all of these other recycle yards and tow yards and whatever else was going on here. And then from there, it doesn't take long for fires to spread from one vehicle until the next one. So this overhead view shows it a lot better as the plane came down the runway here, and then I'll zoom in, and we know that after it left the runway, it veered a little to the left, scraped along the first half of this roof, and then from there, it flew right across Grady Lane here and hit this tank section. It just kept going like this. So the guy in the truck was right here by this billboard sign in front of this particular building. He was just slowing down right here. So you can see how close he was really to the point of impact, probably 200 feet. So as I slow it down here, you can see it still has the right engine. It has no left engine, and the left wing is on fire. And look where the nose is, because behind the billboard sign there, you're going to see the nose gear maybe strikes one of the vertical tanks back in there. It's pretty hard to tell. See, right in there, I think there was a bunch of tanks in there, and that, I believe, was the first point of contact. And that flash you see there is probably an electrical wire being hit. But see, there's the explosion from the tank. So I was watching NTSB's briefing yesterday on November 6th at 3 p.m. And in that briefing, they said that the plane had reached a height of 450 feet. I'm not crazy. I know I didn't imagine that. And the second those words rolled out of his mouth, I was immediately skeptical. I'm thinking to myself, there is no way possible that UPS plane ever reached 450 feet high. That's just absolutely impossible, because even the video that was taken from the runway vehicle from these two guys that were in there talking, and you could see the plane going down the runway like this. Remember, it was going down the runway with its left wing on fire, and it tried to go airborne, and it couldn't even clear that warehouse at the end of the runway. And I had showed you that on yesterday's video as well, how it looks like maybe the landing gear might have gouged into the roof of the top of that UPS warehouse there at the end of the runway. So that says to me that the plane didn't even barely get above 30 feet off the ground, because once it bounced off of the roof of that warehouse is when it then came down like this and crashed across the road like we saw in that now viral dash cam video there. So guess what? Now today the NTSB had to walk that back.
During yesterday's media briefing, the preliminary information we reported was that the FAA ADSB data indicated a GPS altitude of 475 feet. When considering how FAA ADSB data is reported, this equates to approximately 100 feet above ground level. This is what we consider to be the most accurate, but I will also say we're corroborating that with the data from the flight data recorder, which is still being validated and will take several days to be validated.
Now, the NTSB also gave us a very useful photograph here. It shows us the progress they're making on the black boxes. So here they've already removed the printed circuit board out of one of the black boxes, and they've got it there under the microscope. So a nice, good, crystal clear picture of that, and some pictures of their engineers in the laboratory there as they received the black boxes and they're getting ready to open them up.
The Cockpit voice recorder contained 2 hours and 4 minutes of what we consider good quality digital recorded audio. The takeoff roll was what we called uneventful through the different speed callouts.
So that's what I was showing you here on the slide that you're looking at on the screen. But look at what they said happened.
About 37 seconds after the crew called for takeoff thrust, a repeating bell was heard on the CVR, which persisted until the end of the recording 25 seconds later. During this time, the crew engaged in efforts to attempt to control the aircraft before the crash.
Now pay special attention to this, because right here is where they're giving us more details as to exactly what happened with the engine coming off of the wing.
Additionally, in regard to the plane itself, the bulk of the left engine pylon was still attached to the left engine when the engine separated from the wing.
Well, this gives us a really good piece of information here, but you know what? I wish they would just show us the security camera video that they were talking about. Because instead of just listening to them describe to us what was going on, we'd rather just be able to see it for ourselves to see what's going on. I think this is better for transparency. Now, whether or not they'll ever release this video, we don't know. They're not real big on releasing videos that they think have copyright problems, or, you know, I don't understand why, because it's part of an investigation. It's part of the government investigation. We should be able to see it. There should be no issue with copyright notices or anything like that on a video from a security camera from the airport. I mean, come on, really. But anyway, if you take a look here at this drawing that I've got here for you. So here's an overall drawing I've got here for you. It's not like 100% accurate, but I just wanted to show you. Here's the engine right here, and this is the pylon. And you have to listen very closely to the words that they were saying, because the engineer, every single word that they say at these conferences, at this press conference, and what they said was that the bulk of the pylon fell off with the engine attached to it. which really narrows it down into like maybe something here just cracked and fell off. And so I wonder how similar that it really is to the American Airlines 191 flight that I mentioned to you last night, where during maintenance, the forklift had bumped the engine and everything and had cracked a bracket or something, I think, in the back part of the wing. But anyway, that's what they said happened. So remember, the engine with the bulk of the pylon came off intact. And so here, when we're looking at an actual photograph of the MD-11 plane, the left engine is here, and this is the pylon. You can see it underneath the shadow of the wing there. So both of these pretty much came off. Now, when they said the bulk of the pylon, I'm going to assume that maybe 20% of it was left. Like maybe it cracked. Like maybe there was some type of fatigue, and the whole thing just broke right off. So the NTSB has given us some pretty good stuff here. We're getting closer and closer to an answer as to what was going on. They did say that this is going to be the last news update for them from this site. So we're not likely to see anything until we get a 30-day preliminary report from the NTSB. So if you haven't seen my video that I did last night on the UPS plane crash, check this one out right here. And if you didn't see my other NTSB final report video on the Ocean Gate Titan, the submersible, check that out right over here. That's the implosion, people. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see all of you on the next one.